Hey guys, Cameron with CB Reviews here. Man, it feels good saying that again. And I'm here with a new video for you. This is going to be a guide to all of the comic book movies coming out in 2020. Normally, at the very beginning of the year, I do a top 10 things I'm looking forward to. I kind of missed that because of videos that I've put out before. If you want to see that reasoning why, you can click on that puppy right there. But I did want to talk about some of the projects that are coming out this year and then kind of give you my excitement level about it. So without further ado, let's get to that title screen. That felt good too. Before I get started, I want to thank you guys for clicking on the video. My subscribers that waited on me, thank you so much. Those of you who have not subscribed, if you're a fan of this sort of thing or comic book movie reviews, television reviews, click that subscribe button. And if you want to know as soon as I put anything on my channel, hit that notification bell. You'll know as soon as anything goes up. So before I get started, this is a comprehensive list of every single comic book related movie that is coming out this year. I tried not to omit anything, so I did a little bit of research for the ones that are very popular to the ones that are gonna possibly fly under the radar. So this is kind of like your 411 on all things comic book related coming to the big screen. I'm not talking about TV shows or streaming shows. I'm talking exclusively about movies. And I'm also not the best with memory, so I'm going to be doing this from my laptop. My laptop is an old girl. She has put in many, many miles. So if you hear a fan that sounds like something's about to explode, that's just her. Don't pay her any mind. She is doing her best. So now, let's get started with the very first movie that is coming out this year, and that movie is Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. If you didn't tell by the title, this is obviously a DC property, and it's coming out in February the 7th, so approximately 10 days after the initial release of this video. It's directed by Kathy Yan, or Yan, I don't know how to pronounce it. And it stars Margot Robbie, who is reprising the role as Harley Quinn, but we also have some newcomers, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Journey Smollett-Bell, Rosie Perez, and Ewan McGregor. They're playing Huntress, Black Canary, and then Ewan McGregor is playing Black Mask. And I'm not going to give like a deep dive into it, but I will say if I'm excited or not based on a scale of 1 to 10. This one's just a 6 for me. I'm not really all that excited about it. I think Harley Quinn was one of the best things about Suicide Squad, which, you know, they're bringing back one of the best things. But having said that, that doesn't make me super excited for the rest of it. I hope that it does really well. I hope that it goes higher than the 6 out of 10, but upon initial feelings, I'm not that excited about it, especially with the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. They did not need to do all that. Next on the list, and this is going to surprise some of you because in all honesty, it's kind of based on a video game, but Sonic the Hedgehog comes out on February the 14th for all you lovers out there. And the reason why I'm including it is because Sonic the Hedgehog is a comic book that is produced by Archie Comics. It is directed by Jeff Fowler, and it stars Ben Schwartz, James Marsden, Neil McDonough, and Jim Carrey. Ben Schwartz is the voice actor that's doing the voice of Sonic, who has also done voices for Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and DuckTales, and then James Marsden, who was in the original X-Men movies, Neil McDonough, who, you know, normally plays some sort of iron-faced bad guy in either Arrow or oh gosh, what was that? Walking Tall? I'm really stretching for the references right now. And then, of course, Jim Carrey, who's been in some very memorable comic book movies like Batman Forever, Kick-Ass 2, and he was also, oh, what am I forgetting? He was in The Mask. That's a comic book movie. So here he is in his, if I'm counting it correctly, 4th comic book movie as Dr. Robotnik. My excitement for this is slightly higher. It's at a 7 out of 10. I was a Nintendo kid. I was not a Sega guy. I really didn't care that much for Sonic, but the main reason why I'm more excited for this, 2 reasons, is that they got Ben Schwartz, who is doing the voice, and he has done so much with his voice acting in other projects that I'm so glad that they brought a very accomplished voice actor to do this voice. Second thing is that after the initial absolute trash that was the very first trailer, they went back and redid a whole lot, and they have it looking great. Like, this Sonic model looks amazing, and I'm not going to say, well, I was a Nintendo kid, I don't care about Sega. No, I enjoy an effort, and redoing the entire CGI to make Sonic look better. That's an effort that I'm going to reward with a higher grade than Birds of Prey. Next on the list, and this also has to do with animation, but less computer animation and more 2D animation, is Superman Red Son. Once again, a DC property, but this is going to be released on February the 25th, and it's directed by Sam Liu. It stars Jason Isaacs as Superman, Amy Acker, Tara Strong, and Diedrich Bader. This is a retelling. It's an Elseworlds story from a DC story that came out, I believe, in the early 2000s, where instead of Superman landing in the good old USA in Kansas, he lands in Russia and he becomes an asset of the state. And then what happens as fallout for that happening. So I love the story. I read the story. It's by Mark Miller. And it's one of my favorite Superman stories because it kind of gives a different spin on so many other characters. My favorite of those being Lex Luthor. I really love what they did with Lex. And then what they do with Wonder Woman is great too. Not the biggest fan of what they did with Batman, so hopefully in this iteration they do more expanding, they do a little bit more with it. My excitement level for this is at an 8 because I'm usually a huge fan of what DC does with their animated projects. I think this one's going to be no exception. I think it's going to be great. I'm so far, this is the highest level of excitement in the early part of the year. In February, this is the one that I'm most excited about. Next movie on the list of comic book films coming out in 2020 is Bloodshot, which was originally published by Valiant Comics. This is going to be released on March the 13th. It's directed by Dave Wilson, and it stars Vin Diesel, Guy Pearce, and Isa Gonzalez. I'm not exactly sure who that is. So if she was in something super popular, it flew under my radar. But Vin Diesel, of course, in the Fast and Furious franchise. He's also the voice of Groot in the Marvel franchise. And then Guy Pearce, who has been in a lot of good movies. Memento is the first one that comes to mind. But he was also the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. So this one is nowhere near as high on my list. I kind of like the premise of it, but the fact that it's being released in March seems to not give confidence to the project. So out of 10, I rated this excitement level as a 4. As I said, I kind of like the premise, but I'm not exactly sure how the execution is going to be. I don't want it to be boring. I don't want it to be cliche. I'm just hoping that we get something really good out of this project. Next on the list is one that is finally being released. That's The New Mutants, which of course is a Marvel property. I believe it's Fox's very last mutant movie after the unfortunate movie that was The Dark Phoenix. This one is finally being released on April the 3rd. It's directed by Josh Boone, and it stars Maisie Williams, Anya Taylor-Joy, Charlie Heaton, and Blue Hunt. And it's kind of like a horror spin on the mutant saga. Like, I don't know how I feel about it. Like, do I want to like it? I kind of do, but I also think that because it's been pushed back for over 2 years, can it be anything other than a dumpster fire? I'm not sure. Like, Dark Phoenix got pushed back a lot, and you saw what happened there, and this one's been pushed back even more. Out of 10, my excitement for this is a 4, and it's only 4 because I'm hopeful. I want New Mutants to be good. But with the reshoots and things like that, I'm not sure if we're going to get that quality movie. Next on the list is one that we all know is coming out this year. That's going to be Black Widow, the first of the MCU movies coming out this year. This one is coming out on May the 1st. It's directed by Kate Shortland, and it stars Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, Rachel Weisz, and David Harbour. I'm really looking forward to what David Harbour brings to the table, especially after that the Hellboy movie that was bad. Hopefully this is much better. And to be honest, this is not the movie that I'm most excited for this year. Like, MCU usually does a fantastic, spectacular job, but I'm a little upset that Black Widow has been in the MCU for this long, and now she's finally getting her solo movie, especially after the events of Avengers Endgame. I cannot be that excited for this movie that takes place beforehand, so you know she's going to be fine. Yeah, my excitement's only a 7 out of 10, and that 7 is due to the fact that I really like ScarJo's Black Widow, and I think Marvel does great job with their stuff, but you know, yeah, I just don't have the excitement based on how late this project is. It should have come out before Captain Marvel. Next on the project is Wonder Woman 84. Obviously another DC project. This one is being released on June the 5th. It is being directed by Patty Jenkins, who directed the very first Wonder Woman movie, and Gal Gadot and Chris Pine are returning, but we also have newcomers with Pedro Pascal and Kristen Wiig. Kristen Wiig really hasn't been in any comic book anything. She's mostly known for her stuff in Saturday Night Live and comedy movies like Bridesmaids, which is one of my favorite ones, and Paul, which flew under the radar. It's freaking hilarious. But of course, Pedro Pascal, however, has been most recently in the widely super popular TV show or streaming show, The Mandalorian. But he was also, I believe he was Whiskey in Kingsman, The Golden Circle. I'm really excited to see what his Maxwell Lord brings to the table in this movie. And I have to be honest, this Wonder Woman 84 movie, my excitement level is max. It's 10 out of 10. I cannot wait for Wonder Woman 84. I love the first Wonder Woman. The fact that the original director, the original cast are coming back, I could not be more excited for this project. As summer starts to wind through, we get to the next movie, which is a Marvel movie, but it is in the Sony vein. We're getting Morbius. Morbius is coming out projected for July the 31st. It's being directed by Daniel Espinosa, and it stars Jared Leto, Matt Smith, Adria Arjona or Arjona, I don't know exactly how to say it, and surprise, Michael Keaton. You know, Jared Leto, everybody knows from a lot of very, good movies like, Dallas Buyers Club, but most recently he's known for the train wreck that is the Joker from Suicide Squad. The joke's coming around, he failed as the Joker, so now he's going to be Batman in this. I don't know how to feel about this movie because, the trailer didn't look good to me. I watched it, and the only thing that I enjoyed about the trailer was the very end with Michael Keaton, because that meant that it was possibly building upon maybe a Sinister Six, or now these characters that were in the Sony universe are part of the MCU. That part excited me, but the rest of the trailer didn't do it for me. It didn't make much cohesive sense to me. So even with the showing of Adrian Toomes, played by Michael Keaton at the very end, that only does so much for my excitement level. So it only gets up to a 6 out of 10. So hopefully Morbius will come through, and I like the character. That's the thing. I'm not saying this because I don't like the character of Morbius. I grew up in the 90s, and the second season of the Spider-Man cartoon, which came out in 1994, was Morbius was like the main focal point besides Spider-Man. And then I actually have the comic book issues, Amazing Spider-Man 100 and 101, which 100 is when he got the 6 arms, and 101 is the first appearance of Michael Morbius. I really like the character. I just didn't like this trailer. The next movie, the next comic book movie on the list that's coming out is one that completely flew under my radar until I started looking things up. But it's The Empty Man, which is a comic book that was published from Boom Studios. This is going to be released on August the 7th, and it's being directed by David Pryor. It stars Stephen Root, Joel Courtney, Marin Ireland, and James Badge Dale. And I haven't read the book, so I don't know much about it. Secretive group attempting to summon a terrifying supernatural entity. That's from IMDb. I don't know that much about the story. I don't know that much about what the project has to offer. Therefore, my excitement level cannot be that high. It's only at this point 2 out of 10. It gets 2 because Stephen Root. I love Stephen Root. I love what he brought to the table as far as voice acting chops in King of the Hill. I loved his stuff in News Radio. I loved his stuff in Get Out. So I know nothing about this entire thing, but the fact that Stephen Root is attached gets it at least one good point. Next comic book movie on the list is The King's Man, which was a comic book produced by Icon. Now, this sounds like Kingsman because it is in the same universe. Kingsman, which was originally called The Secret Service in the comics, this is a continuation, or rather a prequel to those two movies. It is being directed by Matthew Vaughn, which is amazing, because I love Matthew Vaughn's comic book movies. They are so vibrant and they're full of action, and I love them. It's starring Matthew Good, Ralph Fiennes, Gemma Arterton, and Aaron Taylor Johnson. So we know that this is going to be set in the early 1900s or maybe even late 1800s, but it's telling about the first Kingsman. I don't know exactly what all they're going to bring to the table with this. They have released like a small trailer, but the fact that Matthew Vaughn is directing this means that even though I don't know anything about the characters that are going to show up, I don't know anything about the story for the most part, Matthew Vaughn's going to kill it. And so just by him directing it, excitement level 8 out of 10. The King's Man is going to be top 5 comic book movie of the year. I'm calling it right now. The next comic book movie on the list, which we really don't have a whole lot of information on, is Venom 2. Venom 2 is scheduled to come out this year, but we haven't heard really a whole lot of anything about the project, but it's scheduled to be released on October the 2nd. This is, of course, a Marvel property produced by Sony, but this time it's directed by Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis, who is the best mocap actor in the world, because I said so. We're talking Gollum, we're talking King Kong, we're talking Caesar from the Planet of the Apes movies. He is absolutely amazing, and this is going to be his second movie that he's directing, the first one being the Jungle Book movie that was a Netflix property. But Tom Hardy and Michelle Williams are returning, as well as Woody Harrelson, because he was in that mid-credit scene in the first one. I wasn't the hugest fan of the first Venom. It had its good action scenes and a few things like that, but I wasn't crazy about it. So back when I did my Venom review, I gave it a 40 out of 100 for my excitement. I'm going to match that and say 4 out of 10. It could be good, but I've never been that big of a fan of Venom to begin with. I'm even less of a fan of Carnage, and that's just a personal preference. I prefer the 1960s Spider-Man villains to the 1990s Spider-Man villains. Venom, Carnage, not the hugest fan. The last comic book movie on this list that we know for sure is coming out this year is The Eternals, another Marvel MCU property. This one's coming out on November the 6th, and it's directed by Chloe Zhao. It's starring Angelina Jolie, Selma Hayek, Kumail Nanjiani, and Kit Harington. And this is going to be supposed to be set in the current day, but the Eternals have this whole backstory from the 1960s comics on, if I remember correctly. Like, this is some Jack Kirby old school stuff, and unfortunately I don't know that much about the Eternals. Here's what I am guessing. I'm guessing that this is going to have a lot to do as far as stylized with Guardians of the Galaxy, and maybe with a splash of that first Thor to give it a sense of regalness, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not familiar with the characters that much, and this is the first time that they're going to be seen on the big screen. So my excitement can't be that huge since I don't know that much. Once again, it's an MCU property, so I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, but that's because I'm very hopeful, and they really haven't dropped the ball yet, with the exception of the Inhumans. So I actually have a few other movies on this list, but we don't have a release date. So that's why they're going to be at the end. And I'm going to mention the live action ones first, and then go to the animated ones. So the first one that I want to talk about is The Last Days of American Crime. This is an Image comic, and we don't have a release date, but it's directed by, is it Olivier Megaton? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. but it stars Edgar Ramirez, Michael Pitt, and Anna Brewster. I haven't read the book itself, but the premise is kind of interesting. So this is like set in a not too distant future where the U.S. is trying to combat terrorism, so they broadcast a system to where you can't commit a crime if you're hearing this, and it has a very dystopian kind of feel to it. Interesting. I like the premise. It has like a Minority Report and 1984 vibe going along with it. I'm not exactly sure, but 5 out of 10. I like the idea. I'm interested to see it. Next movie, which is also an Image comic, is The Old Guard. Don't have a release date, but it's being directed by Gina Prince Blythewood. It's starring Charlize Theron, Marwan Kenzari, and Chiwetel Ejiofor. And this is talking about like some warriors that live a very long time and they have to fight something. And this is a Netflix exclusive, which means it's probably going to be really good, but I couldn't care less. It gets the solid 1 out of 10. And maybe that's being harsh because Charlize Theron, great. Chiwetel Ejiofor is great. Marwan Kenzari, he was Jafar in Aladdin, so I would not use the word great. And it's probably going to be better than I'm making it out to be. I have no excitement toward the project at all. The last 3 that we're going to talk about, they don't have a release date, they don't have a director, they don't have any actors, so I don't have any excitement level towards them, but they are some DC projects. The first one is going to be Superman Man of Tomorrow, which is going to be like a Superman Year 1, but it's also supposed to be an original story, so that sounds interesting. Hopefully they can tell that classic Superman story correctly. The next one is Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, which is a sequel to Justice League Dark, which came out, I believe, 3 years ago. Nothing's attached to it, but it looks like it's going to be a mishmash of those eclectic characters and the new gods. So it could be very interesting, something on a much larger scale than the last one. And then the last one, which should be very exciting, is Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1. Now, this is of course a retelling of the story about Batman, which was written by Jeff Loeb, illustrated by Tim Sale. One of the best reviewed Batman stories of all time. And there's supposed to be 2 parts, so it was similar to the Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, which was of course a Frank Miller book. I'm excited to see what happens there, but we don't have a release date on any of those. I'm looking forward to them. Unfortunately, the excitement level would just be based on the comic book alone. So there you have it. That is the play-by-play for 2020 comic book movies that are coming out. Tell me which ones you are most excited about in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel and share this with your friends. As always, this is Cameron with CBM Reviews. We'll see you next time.